Hello, good evening, and welcome. Although, if you look in the background, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see daylights because it's Saturday morning. We're going to go through the first four games now, and then do the cup final and the game that Dave will no doubt moan about later uh, uh, tomorrow, basically. But it won't look like tomorrow. It'll all be stitched together in a perfectly
Yeah.
edited moment, like we normally do. All high quality editing, etc. You're right,
That's
Dave.
you. To be clear, that's you, not me. I do nothing of that. I take no credit for that or blame if it's done amateurishly. No, no,
Yeah, when I don't flip it round. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm all right actually. Yeah, albeit I've had more fun Friday nights, but yeah, there you go.
well, you know what? There were so many niche stats coming out of Friday night. I quite enjoyed it, but we'll get to that
Yeah,
in a minute. Let's
yeah.
start on Wednesday. London Lions 75, Bristol Flies 67. So the last of the suspension games for Ovi Soko. Adebayo is still out. Flood, it's been confirmed, has left the Lions now. I did see he'd signed somewhere. I can't remember where now. I feel like it's Eastern Europe, but I did see that on Twitter. Walsh back and into the starters. Louis off the bench. Smith was also back. Kind of a slow start to this game. Flyers led
Mm.
2-6, and then London with a 14-4 spell, although it was a slightly elongated spell, went 16-10 ahead.
Yeah, just on Flood, obviously, for whatever reason, he started playing quite well, but obviously they must have had a better offer, I assume. He has an Irish passport, so he has the ability to play all over Europe as a Bosman player, so he's quite valuable in that way. But they've obviously replaced him with Holloway because they didn't take up their full schedule of imports at the beginning of the season. And I think even now they've still only got five.
Mm.
So that kind of gives you flexibility through the course of the year to kind of make upgrades. Yeah, Bristol are kind of mixing and matching the starting five. They're desperately trying to find something that works because they haven't really shown much in the way of consistency since before the cup final, in reality, and the trophy final. And yeah, it was a pretty, stodgy start, wasn't it? Really, watching
Mm.
it, it was a Wednesday night game. The box wasn't overly
No.
busy compared to what it has been. And it just seemed like it's one of those games we're going to have to get through, guys.
Yeah, yeah.
That
Uh,
was it. That was
w-
my impression of it.
let's try and get through it. Walsh
Oh, there
with
was a couple,
five.
and there was a couple.
Yeah,
I mean, even the refs as well. I mean, there was a call in the first quarter where the ball got thrown out of Keely Johnson, and I don't know if you saw it on the London guy threw the past the baseline, and it hit Keely Johnson on the leg and went out of
yeah,
bounds.
yeah, yeah,
And Rob Hickman and Tahira Carr both basically didn't see it. And there's a picture of Ovi Soko on the baseline
yeah, 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 yeah.
immediately afterwards with his head in his hands, like what, he's literally he's had the view of it.
Yeah,
And I think there was another one later on in the game where the ball came straight off a Bristol player and it was given to Bristol. I can't remember. But yeah, it just seemed it was one of those kind of, okay, Wednesday night, we've all been busy guys. Let's just get through this.
yeah. Walsh with five in a seven unanswered run by the Flyers in the second quarter to lead 27 32. London had a 7-0 start to the third quarter, and then they had another 7-0 run in the fourth quarter to lead by 11. And if I'm honest with you, it always felt in the second half, once they had that first 7-0 run, like they were going to win. It didn't feel like Bristol had
Yeah, it
enough
did. I agree
offense.
with that. And it's Bristol's shot selection at this point in time isn't great. And, in 67, 67, 67,
Mm.
points scored isn't going to win you that many games in this league. It might win you the odd one, but it's not going to win you that many. Now, obviously, London, we've talked, they're a pretty solid defensive team, no question. And Bristol having Evan Walsh back does help them because it gives them that little bit of extra scoring punch. But they don't, they're not carrying themselves with any degree of confidence at the moment. Not even swag. It doesn't have to be swag. There just doesn't seem to be any certainty about them. Andreas is looking for guys to produce, but they're inconsistent. It doesn't seem that they're getting a game out of like four or five players on the same night. If that makes
Yeah,
any
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Um, they really need Robinson to make threes. The way
Mm.
that really opens up everything for them, and he's not shooting it as um confidently as as he was earlier on in the season, where he was basically catching, putting it up.
Mm.
Um, they played a lot of games, and it's just the mental mistakes in their game in relation to their shot selection, and also Keady's not stepping up the way that he really needs to step up, um, because that team doesn't have much margin for error against some of the other teams in this league,
Yeah.
and they need their guy to go for 20 every night, basically. Um, London, I agree. I didn't, other than, as I say, some slightly bizarre out of bounds calls. There wasn't much in this game which made you think London were going to lose it.
No.
They've got size and their ability to control. Holloway actually it looks like kind of a nice fit. He's not taking away from anybody else, but he's a guy who knows his game. He's a pro. You can see that he knows which shots to shoot. He knows when to shoot them. He might make them, he might miss them, but he's not doing things that's going to make Bozic tear his hair out,
No.
which I think is Bozic's major um, this season anyway. That's his major priority in recruiting a team. He doesn't
Yeah.
want guys who are going to do stupid things. He wants guys who are going to fit in and he's going to build a team in their image. And so now Peterson and Holloway are kind of similar players insofar as that they're not ball dominant, but they're getting good production out of their big guys. They have big guys who can score the ball, and not every team in this league does.
Bristol did get it to four in the closing stages, but it didn't tempt me to start writing things down because I never was convinced they were going to get back. Delaire, 19.7 rebounds. Brisker, 16 points. Hadzabegovic, 10. Walsh, 22. Johnson, 13. Robinson, 10 points, 10 rebounds. Flyers, you mentioned 67, 67, 67. Flyers were the ninth team to reach the same score for 3 games in a row. The first since Mersey did it in 2011. It's happened 11 times in total. Leicester are the only team to have done it 4 times in a row. They scored 82 4 games in a row in March, April 2010. We nearly had it as well on Friday night. I was
Yeah, they did
really
actually.
annoyed.
I was rooting for it on Friday night, to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. Let's go to the other game on Wednesday. A bit more offense in this one, a bit less defense as well.
Mm.
Caledonia Gladiators 94, Cheshire Phoenix 96. Kane was back. Farrell Hodgic was back after a long absence from surgery. Scott Grayson also back. They didn't have Ulf though. Um, Cheshire. There's literally nothing in the first half. There were a couple of minor runs, but basically it was score for score, almost always a basket between them until Spielman and Whelan combined to push Gladiators 49-41 ahead just before halftime.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, the thing I noticed was Pat Whelan didn't actually touch the ball for about 8 minutes, didn't shoot the ball for about 8 minutes, and still had 15 points at half time.
Mm.
Um, Cheshire remain Cheshire. That's a bit. I feel like a broken record. I've said what they are and how they play. Um, there isn't that much new to it. Um, they have strong points. They have weak points. Caledonia obviously are an absolute work in progress because they're now up to the most imports ever in the history of
Yeah, yeah,
British basketball season.
yeah,
Which was a stat I dropped on Drew Lasker last night, which I
yeah.
gather he used. I
He
haven't
did
watched it yet.
use it. Yeah,
He
yeah,
did use it, yeah. Well, I'll take the credit for it. Um, and however many point guards they've had. So working out what they're they've got 11 players who are healthy now. So figuring out how those 11 players are best utilized is not easy. But what they are is deep, and what they are is athletic. They're a big team, and they don't have anybody who's big and who you think he can't run. Maybe Peter Hughes struggles at times against certain matchups for but other than that, but even then he's shown some capabilities. For British 7-footer in this league, it's not easy.
mm,
And obviously they've signed the new fella from Spain who doesn't look like he can run much, but looks like he knows his way around the basketball court.
yeah,
And the impression for me was this game was there for Caledonia to win,
yeah.
and that a bit like the last time they played Cheshire, they were up 7 with 50 seconds to go,
Mm,
and that through dead possessions, through bad decisions, um, they didn't take the opportunity that was afforded to them.
Yeah.
That was kind of the impression. And I can't go through each and every dead possession or bad possession, but it just some of the decision making I thought, and some of the defensive decision making at the end wasn't great. And to beat Cheshire, you probably got to score 97,
Mm.
and they only scored 94.
Yeah, yeah. So Gladiators didn't make a field goal for 5 minutes in the third quarter, which allowed Cheshire to reel them back in and take the lead by a point. Seven in a row by Caledonia made it 88-82. Whelan was on the bench at that point with 4 fouls, but as you say, nobody knows better than Caledonia the dangers of the Cheshire comeback. Let's go through the last couple of minutes. Ventura misses a three. Austin straight to the rim. 153 to go. 89-88. Whelan misses on the drive. White up top for three. 121 to go. 89-91. It was actually at that shot I thought, oh dear, they're going to get their hearts broken
Well, and
again.
this is the thing, because they're up by six,
Mm,
right? And when you're up by six, it's you should be able to cobble together enough stops.
mm,
What you shouldn't be doing is getting beat with Larry to the rim and Sky there at the top.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's you could literally, if you were going to make a kind of an album cover of Cheshire's season so
Yeah,
far, and you're going to
yeah,
call it some, half man, half biscuit name, it would be Larry to the rim and Skylar at the top.
yeah, yeah,
With some kind of artistic kind of shades of them doing it, and you can't lose that way.
mm,
That's it. And it was different people. It was different people at different times who gave up the shots to Skylar, and Skylar shot the ball really well.
mm,
Um, but they should know.
yeah.
So that was 5 points that you can't be giving up.
Yeah. Barnes then hits a three at the other end with a minute to go, 92-91.
Actually,
Austin,
Cheshire, you don't mind that, because
yeah,
Cheshire comes to shooting 25% from three,
yeah, yeah.
and you got the ball out of Whelan's hands.
Out of
So
Whelan's hands to give it
so
to them.
the difference from Cheshire's perspective is, okay, fine, tip your hat, move on, we'll take that.
Mm,
Don't care.
yeah. Austin drives to the rim, didn't quite have enough, and he goes after his own rebound. He ends up fouling Ramsey in the process. That was his fourth foul. Ramsey goes to the line, 40.9 seconds to go, 93-91 as he makes one of two. Cheshire then took their time. I thought they might go 2 for 1 here with 40 seconds to go to give themselves an extra possession. But Austin laid it in with 23.1 seconds to go to tie the scores at 93-93, and Caledonia took the title.
This play really, really annoyed me. Not annoyed, it's the wrong word, but frustrated me from Caledonia's perspective, because Austin has the ball on the top and top on the right wing, kind of right 45 degrees,
Mm,
and Ramsey's guarding him. And in the strong side corner, so in the corner next to Austin, is Holden, and Holden's being guarded by Spielman. I wasn't sure if Bendy had fouled out at this point. I'm not sure, but I was a bit surprised that Bendy wasn't in the game for defense if he hadn't fouled out. Spielman is new, obviously, so he won't be up to speed with the league and with all the players and all the circumstances. And what happened is Holden, the ball that you're right, they're holding the ball. They haven't got much,
mm,
right? And Holden, to create something, he comes across as if to set a screen for Austin. It's called a ghost screen. Pretends to set a screen from the corner up, right? And basically instead of setting the screen, goes behind Ramsey and moves up towards the top of the key, right? Now at that point, Spielman has to stay. He has to stay behind Ramsey. He has to guard that spot. He has to assume it's a real screen, because he's not worried about Austin throwing to Holden for a catch and shoot three,
mm,
because Holden isn't Skylar White. Holden needs to load it up. And as soon as Spielman went and basically guarded Holden and took the ball out of his hands, that left Ramsey, not knowing where the screen was coming from, it left Austin with a clear side with nobody else on it, one on one.
mm,
Boom, two dribbles, he's at the rim.
mm,
And that's all corrected if Spielman knows the system, or if they've got a guy knowing the skill sets of the opposition, who knows, I don't need to go in and meet that fake screen by Holden worked. If he just stays there, just holds there for 2 seconds, that player is dead. Larry has to throw it back to Cameron Holden. Cameron Holden has to make a play out of nothing because Spiel can get across there by then.
mm, yeah.
So little details on having guys who haven't been there long can make big differences in games.
Mm. Obviously they didn't advance the ball. 18.1 seconds to go. Scott Grayson with a crazy reach round at half court. They were on 4 fouls, so it sent Whelan to the free
Well,
throw
I mean
line.
Cheshire and I mean Manchester didn't play this week, but Cheshire and Manchester just foul just far too much, And this is, ultimately you get into 50-50 games and you might win them because the other team makes as many mistakes as you do. But the score is tied. Ben didn't want him to foul. Ben was
Yeah,
angry when he fouled. It wasn't a deliberate foul, and he's reaching around on the halfway line.
yeah.
He's a good defender. He should be in front of him and he should be guarding him. Right? He does not need to reach around and make a cheap play for a steal on the halfway line.
Mm,
They got so lucky.
yeah, yeah. So Whelan went 1 for 2. So
Yeah, and
it's
then he
nine.
missed a couple in the last game against Cheshire, I think, as
Yeah,
well, from
yeah,
memory.
he did. Yeah,
He
and
missed one,
actually the second one had a good thing before it dropped in. To be fair.
But the first one looked like it was just kind of, it didn't look like a Pat Whelan free throw. I think,
Mm,
and that's what losing can do to you. It can
mm,
tighten you up.
mm,
The big, it can just tighten the muscle memory up because suddenly it's not as natural.
mm. Timeout Cheshire again. They don't advance the ball because there's 18.1 seconds on the clock. Um, this time I thought they would go slower, Cheshire, and they went quick.
Mm.
10.8 seconds to go. Austin bullies his way to the rim and puts Cheshire back up
Yeah,
94-95.
this was a nice little play because they ran Austin off a kind of an upcut from the corner and had him turn the corner going to his right, which is where he's strongest. And because Caledonia weren't was kind of switching the down screen that was set, again he's got Spielman in front of him.
Mm,
It's a tough matchup for Spielman with Austin coming face. He doesn't see Austin is a guy who if you're a new player to the league, he's unique. You will not expect to see what you get out of him, which is his ability to get to the rim and finish.
mm,
We haven't seen a guy with that specific skill set for years.
mm,
So Spielman's guard, if you're guarding him like anybody else, he guarded him okay. He kind of stayed in front of him, but he did that, as you say, bullied his little fake, bullied his way to the rim. He got to the front of the rim.
mm,
And that's matchups. That's good coaching if that was the plan to get Austin downhill on Spielman because it worked.
mm,
But Austin's just, you got to find a way of making Austin shoot a jump shot
mm,
or make him dribble past somebody or weave past somebody at the 3-point line. As soon as he gets downhill, it is done.
mm,
The only way you can defend that is if you've got, as I say, somebody who's got ridiculous length, like Benley or a big guy who's able to wait at the rim and meet there. And Cheshire really, I'm sorry, Caledonia really didn't have any of those guys in.
mm. No timeouts left for Johnny, so they were a bit on the fly. Timberlake deflects the original inbound out of bounds, sideline ball, and then with 2.5 seconds to go, there's an offensive foul on the screen called against Barnes. I thought Ramsey went half a step too early there, and Barnes wasn't quite in position, so it was sort of hip on hip, which
I
he.
thought it was a no call, to be honest. Watching it
Mm,
back, I thought it was a no call. I'd be
mm,
pretty reluctant to call that at the end of the game.
mm,
Not that it mattered because Ramsey hadn't got a head of steam. When you've got 6 seconds, you've got to go quick straight away. You cannot take 2 seconds to jog because you cannot change speed in that time. You've got to get the defense on their heels, and he didn't do that. He kind of did a couple of dribbles just to try and figure out what he was going to do. You can't do that. You just got to fly and
mm,
hope that chaos is going to be created.
mm,
Um, he didn't because of that. They were all a little bit, as you say, out of sequence. Um, you look at it was one of those screens whereby Barnes kind of moved after it was hit, which made it look a little bit worse than it was.
yeah,
But for me, I'm not that. It needs to be more. That there needs to. It needs to be. His feet weren't that wide.
yeah.
He wasn't
Oh,
that late.
I
Didn't
no, I think
step
he.
into him.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think there was a lean or anything. I just think it because the contact was sort of side on side. It wasn't into the
Yeah,
middle of him.
but
That
that's
the
not
legs
that's
then
not a
get
foul.
tangled and you get.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's what you got to be really careful. That's a defender selling a foul. That isn't a foul, provided he's in his cylinder, and there's an argument maybe he's a little bit outside of his cylinder with his legs. Okay, then that would be a foul. But if you set a screen there, and if the guy runs into your shoulder, it's still a legitimate
Mm,
screen, provided you're not moving.
mm.
You,
I
you
thought
can't
it's
control
I
you can't
my
control where the guy
yeah
runs
yeah
into.
yeah my take
So
was if Ramsey was half a step later in going, and I know you said he should have gone earlier, but
Yeah.
the fact that he didn't go earlier, if he was half a step later in going, I think Barnes would have been fully in position and then taken the charge in the middle of his chest. And I think
Yeah.
because it was hip on hip, those are generally called offensive fouls.
I don't know why. I don't think they should be called at all. But anyway, when I say it should have gone quicker, by that point you have to go with the screen. I get your
Yeah,
point
yeah,
about the
yeah,
screen. My point about going quicker was at the beginning.
yeah, yeah,
You got to
yeah,
get catch the ball and you got to go head down and you got to go at speed because the only way you get anywhere with kill. You go side to side with 6 seconds left, you go nowhere. And
mm,
Ramsey ended up on the sideline
yeah, yeah,
when he was shooting the basketball.
yeah,
So and then Ventura was signaling for the timeout and they didn't have a timeout and the whole thing was just a little bit of like, oh my goodness, how have we managed to screw this up again?
yeah, yeah.
Whelan doesn't touch the ball. They didn't really have a plan for what they were doing, but they lost the game not
Because
offensively. They
even if
lost
the
the game
foul's not
defense.
called, he's out on the wing with 2.5 seconds to go.
Yeah, well, and it was a Hail Mary shot.
Mm,
Um, and no, and but they didn't lose the game offensively. They lost the game defensively. They lost the game by Skylar White threes and I think Larry Austin three layups
mm,
in the
yeah,
last
yeah,
2 minutes.
yeah, yeah.
That's they're the things that you've got to make somebody else beat you, and they didn't. So,
So we didn't we
but they
didn't
are
we didn't
they
see
are
it.
so new.
Yeah, yeah, we didn't see it, but there was an inbound foul before the ball had been caught, which obviously is now a free
Yeah.
throw, which Timberlake made to push it to 94, 96, and then we go back to the sideline with 2.5 seconds to go. It's inbounded to Timberlake. I'm not sure why Timberlake dribbled in that situation. I didn't think anything good could come out of dribbling it from.
No,
It was a bit too clogged, and he ended up sort of losing the ball, and then the Caledonia player, I think it was Barnes, goes over, but just hold it
just
would be
hold it.
my
Yeah.
take. Yeah.
I mean, it was a very bad inbounds foul. Again, that's a
Mm.
discipline thing.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't commit an inbounds foul. You can't give them a free shot in that situation.
Mm.
Your only chance is turning them over, I suppose, on the inbounds and getting a quick there. And there's a lesson for Johnny in relation to timeouts. The reality is that it was a 95-95 game. It was one of those games that was always likely to end up close.
Mm.
And so, in reality, I'm sure he wishes he had a timeout left.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whelan, 7 of 10 shooting for 21 points and 6 assists. Spielman, 16 points and 6 rebounds. Ramsey, 12. Timberlake, 28. Austin, 8 of 12 shooting for 18 points and 5 assists. Holden, 16 points and 6 assists. Let's go to Friday. Bristol Flies 63. Boo. Leicester
Mm.
Riders 74. Ralph Thomas Edwards was suited, but he didn't play in this game. Samuels was listed, but
I
he
think we'd
didn't.
be taking a good note, though.
Hey?
He seemed to be taking a good note every time the camera was on him. He was writing something in a book.
Yeah, 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 yeah. He did.
Yeah,
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 yeah. I
yeah, yeah.
understand. Yeah, yeah, mate.
Samuels was
I'd like
listed,
to see
but
that book.
yeah, he didn't play. So that meant Landolfi was in the starting lineup for his first ever start. Lewis had 2 fouls in the first 3 minutes. Riders didn't make a field goal for the first 4 minutes. Flyers were making threes early on, and they led 15-8.
Yeah, it's kind of a game which again emphasized the strengths and weaknesses of each team, and ultimately the difference between the teams was consistency of approach and discipline in decision making. The thing that got me in this game, I mean, the thing that, and that's easy just to kind of throw out there as a statement, but if you go back to a play 3 minutes into the first quarter, I think Owen McCormack makes his second three on the wing.
Mm,
And there's a close up of him, and he's talking to somebody, maybe his own bench. It's nothing aggravating or anything like that. But he's wound, he's giving it this. He's
mm,
crowds up. The gym is always loud in there when they're making shots early, and he does that. And within 10 seconds, Leicester have the ball. Well, within 5 seconds, Charles Thompson has the ball at the top of the key. I think he's got a mismatch with Keedy Johnson on him, right at the top of the key. And Charles Thompson isn't a threat at the top of the key. That is not where he scores a basketball. He actually is a handoff guy, ball movement guy, but he doesn't barrel you down from the top of the key. Gets the ball in the post, gets the ball on the screen and roll, but he's not going to go from 15 feet and take 2 steps. Just doesn't do that. So whilst there's a mismatch, you're not overly concerned at that point if you're Bristol, right? Except if you're Owen McCormack, because Owen McCormack's still full of this with making the shot. He steps 5 feet off Riley Abercrombie, 6 feet off Riley Abercrombie towards the paint, which means Thompson has to pass it to Abercrombie. Abercrombie, who happens to have made a 3-point shot on the last play,
yeah, yeah.
is open and makes another one from what you would describe as his spot,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Now, that's the discipline I'm talking about. McCormack's come in, he's made two big threes, he's wound up, all of that. You cannot let Thompson get an assist just by throwing it from the top of the crease to Abercrombie and find that there's nobody anywhere near him.
Mm,
That's just like giving 3 points back.
yeah.
And if that happens enough times in a game, and it did with this game with Bristol, primarily because they couldn't rebound the ball
Mm,
defensively, then it becomes debilitating.
mm,
Then every high you have is met by an immediate, oh, they're still here. You
mm,
have to be able to put defensive possessions together, and you have to be locked into precisely who it is you're guarding and
mm,
how you're meant to be guarding them. And that play frustrated me as much as the Glasgow one, the
yeah,
Caledonia one,
yeah, yeah.
because I'm thinking, no, you're making plays, you're in the game. Don't give these guys rhythm. Don't give them something you're not meant to give them. It would
Mm,
have absolutely done my head. And look, Andreas is not telling them to stand off Owen McCormack to go and help on Charles Thompson at the top of the
mm,
key.
yeah, yeah.
That isn't a coaching thing, right? They've got the scout report. They've played these teams how many times? All the
Mm,
games are live to watch. They can watch wherever they want. They should know, right? Every single player should know what you're giving up and what you're not giving up by now. And the mental fatigue that you see I think, in some of the Bristol players is palpable. And I think that was an example of it. There's a lot of if you have a lot of energy um, and you're getting the crowd going when you make a shot, you better get back there and get a stop.
yeah,
I'd be happier if I've said it before. I'm far happier with teams celebrating stops than
yeah,
celebrating
yeah, yeah, yeah,
doing what you're meant to do and making a
mm,
three.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Get a stop, take a charge, do as much. That's great,
yeah, yeah,
fantastic. But don't give up that three right there, Cromby. You
yeah,
just
yeah,
can't. And that was kind of the way it kind of developed. Leicester got better shots. Leicester didn't really make many of those shots, but they cleaned up the offensive glass
yeah,
in the first half in particular to an
yeah,
almost embarrassing degree. And whereas Bristol's shots were more difficult.
yeah. So Riders made some threes as well. At the end of the first quarter, it was 19-21, and the two teams combined for 4 for 15 from 2-point range and 9 of 17 from 3-point range in the first quarter. Um,
Mhm.
3 minutes into the second quarter, did Shelton get a technical for losing his shoe? That's what it looked like to
I
me.
think he did, yeah. I don't know. His shoot, well, he lost it, but he didn't just kind of lose it just next to him, did he? He lost it about
No,
20 feet away from where,
yeah, yeah.
well,
He sort of swung his
I
foot and
don't
his
know. I
shoe
will
came.
find it. I don't know. We saw a little bit of his normal kind of celebratory, kind of chest bumping type of
Yeah,
stuff. So I suppose he could have said something as well, but it does
yeah,
seem that, it was the appendage flying across the court, which
yeah.
caught the ref. Said,
Well,
I'll,
I'm starting to feel sorry for him. He got
yeah,
unsportsmanlike for flexing at Manchester and a technical for
yeah,
losing
well,
his
yeah.
shoe at Bristol. It
Yeah,
just seems a bit.
yeah,
I think he's
shoeless
being
Duke
picked
Shelton.
on or
Yeah, to
something.
make a movie.
Shoeless,
Yeah,
shoeless Duke Chelton.
shoeless Duke should be. Come on, let's the fans get the signs out. Shoeless Duke.
Yeah. Jackson scored 7 in a row, and then Johnson had a three, and Leicester were up 10 just before halftime. Hunter and Jackson again in the third quarter pushed it to 20 with 13 to go,
Well,
42-62.
the third quarter. I mean, the third quarter, Leicester ran a clinic on offense for about 8 minutes, and just Jackson got to the rim, Hunter got wherever he wanted to go. The guys who weren't making shots rebounded the ball. It was just you could feel the air just deflating from Bristol. But to be fair, they did stick at it, and Leicester started missing. And this is kind of the one question mark with Leicester. They do kind of have occasional times where they go through droughts, and when they start missing, even if they're generating decent looks, they don't always make them.
Mm,
And when they start missing, um, not necessarily in this game against Bristol, but when they start miss when end up playing Sheffield and Leicester, Sheffield and London in the league deciding games, are they going to be able to score the ball
mm.
consistently throughout? Because they shouldn't really have let Bristol back in this game. This
No,
game was
I,
kind of,
I'll
from my
be honest with
perspective,
you.
watching it back, this game was kind of done.
Yeah, I thought this was the
Yeah.
oddest fourth quarter of the season.
Yeah,
Bristol got it down to 4 points with 5 minutes to play and then didn't score again. Leicester didn't
yeah,
make a field goal until the 4 minute mark and then only
yeah,
made two after that. It was
yeah.
just, it was, the whole thing was just odd, I thought.
It was neat. It was that kind of situation where well, Bristol are playing lots of guys, so they're trying to find lineups that work all the time. You can see is Louis starting? Is he not going to start? Is Johnson going to be the point guard? Is Sheffield going to start? Is even Landolfi in this game? Where's Walsh come in? What are they going to get off the bigs, etc. Leicester are a little bit different. Leicester are always balancing how much can they play the starters. Zach Jackson is playing a lot of minutes. I think Zach Jackson may have played the whole second half in this game. Um, but or he might have got him out in the third quarter, but I don't think he came out in the fourth quarter. And he got tired a little bit, and he started in being that fourth quarter. Um, so
33
they're
minutes
kind
were
of
played.
33 minutes. Well, I think most of it, I think the high proportion in the second half.
Mm,
And I don't think from memory, I don't think Brooks came in the game in the second half either. Um, so their rotation shortens in the second half, and so there are times whereby offensively, and this is kind of going back to the semi-final games that they played, the Surrey games in particular. But they've only been beaten by good teams this year. They don't lose to average teams, Leicester. That's the thing. They've only been beaten in the league by Newcastle, London, and Sheffield. That's it. Um, and they've only been beaten in obviously the one game against Surrey in the trophy. But it's that the shots stop dropping. They're still shooting the same shots, but they don't have outside of Jalen Hunter, who was excellent in this game, they still don't quite have an alpha male. Jalen Hunter is a semi-alpha male. Zach Jackson is a semi-alpha male, um, but not. But they are being worked very, very hard. And I was waiting for one of them to come up and make a play, but then you realise well, actually they're playing most of the second half. So
mm,
Rob's really testing them, and ultimately it was Leicester's defense which held out because when Bristol got back to four, they were
mm,
able to get stops. That
yeah.
was the difference. And Leicester's offense, kind as you say, they won by 12 going away, but they didn't score the ball.
Yeah, yeah,
Because it
yeah.
was the ball. You know, and the question
Well, it
is
was a
again,
7-0 last 5 minutes.
yeah, the question is, so the defense won the game for them
Mm.
against that Bristol shot selection.
Yeah, yeah, there were some
At
terrible
the end,
ones.
Bristol
Yeah,
shot selection when we're praying for them to get a 67.
yeah, yeah.
Their selection. Evans pulling up and shooting threes off the dribble. You just get they didn't have a. I'm waiting for Keely Johnson to take over. That's his time. To have the basketball to make plays. And there's times that he's getting the ball and he's got Spencer Johnson on him and he's throwing it back to Louis. And I'm thinking, Keely, that's got to be you. You got to be the one who makes the play. You got to attack.
Mm,
And they just don't. They don't have. So at the moment, well, Leicester don't have kind of an absolute alpha male, and Hunter's the nearest in relation to having the ball in his hands and making decisions and kind of giving it that vibe.
mm,
Um, Bristol don't even have they don't have a beta male at the moment. You just don't know who it's going to be, and
mm,
that's the problem. So you cannot go scoreless in the last 5 minutes of a game at home and lose by 10.
mm,
When you're down by four. But that means you're not getting the ball where it needs to get to. So yeah, it was a weird game. It was. I think it demonstrated flaws in both teams, but also what carried Leicester through was their defense. Defense
mm,
wins.
yeah,
Defense in the last 5 minutes. Discipline, not fouling, not putting them on the foul line, not being in the penalty. All those little things mean that you win in absolutely what was an ugly game, an
yeah.
ugly fourth quarter.
18 points were scored in the fourth quarter between the two teams since 2009. This is only the fifth time that few points have been scored in the last 10 minutes. The last time was Leicester winning a quarter 14-4 at London to win 67-80 in 2022. The other three were all in 2014, randomly enough.
Wow. I
Um,
haven't picked that up watching it, but watching back, it kind of feels
mm,
right. And yeah, and both teams got decent shots, but not great shots.
yeah.
You
And there
know,
were there was some really bad turnovers as well.
bad turnovers,
Yeah,
yes, yeah.
yeah. Johnson 14 and Sheffield 14. Nobody else in double figures for Bristol. There were zero second chance points for the Flyers. This is the first time since the 18th of November 2022 against Cheshire that they've not had any second chance points.
Well, Thompson obviously is a great rebounder. Abercrombie is a good rebounder. Leicester are a good defensive rebounding team. They all they all come back and do their bit on the boards. Um, but it also tends to suggest you don't really know where your shots are coming from.
I think they only had 6 offensive rebounds.
And you know, and they are, you know, they've got some athletes on that basketball
Yeah.
team. So, you know, Lewis and Robinson are units. Um, yeah, it just you just feel for Bristol because it's game after game after game,
Mm,
and they're searching for something,
yeah.
and they haven't found it. And I'm not sure it's going to have to be one of the senior guys is going to have a game which is basically we are not losing,
Mm,
and we haven't seen one of them yet. Walsh tried against London when he had 22, um, but they needed a bit more to beat London. And then I suppose you play in London Wednesday, Leicester Friday. It's not easy.
no. Jackson 17, Abercrombie 16.7 rebounds, Hunter 13.7 rebounds, 5 assists. Nobody on the Leicester team shot above 50%. In fact, Leicester as a team shot 39% from field goal, 25% from three, 58% from free throws. And since 2008, that's only the 17th time that a team has won a game while shooting sub 40, 25 or worse from three, and sub 60.
Yeah, that figures. Watching that, yeah, you did think that on watching the game, Leicester left a lot of points out there, but they also rebounded the ball very well,
Mm,
which gave them enough possessions.
yeah. Let's go to the final. It's not the final game. There are two more
Oh,
games
it's
after
not.
this
Two
game,
more games after this.
honestly.
Sorry.
Honestly.
The
Uh,
final game of part one, the final game before the intermission, before you go get your ice creams.
yeah. Did we play that
Yeah.
music? What was the old music? The rank, was it? What was the music they used to do in cinemas? Do you remember?
Oh no, not before
Yeah.
my time, sadly.
Somebody will put it in the comments somewhere or other. There used to be a tune. Newcastle Eagles 67, Caledonia Gladiators 83. Obviously, Delpesh has had surgery, so he wasn't there. Cora was out. Neighbour was back. Kane was listed but didn't play. I did like in the interview pre-game, I think Mark said it 2 or 3 times that they'd faced 3 coaches and 21 players going against Caledonia. This
Yeah, I mean these
this
teams have played. This is their seventh game
yeah.
against. It's the beginning of March. I figure that Caledonia have played probably 28
Mm,
domestic games.
mm,
I think 18 league, maybe 18 league games, 8 trophy games, a couple of cup games.
mm.
7 of them, a quarter of them have been against Newcastle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not good. I don't care what NB says. You know, you play a quarter of your games against one different team in a 19 league. You know, there's some consider, and obviously they're not going to play them again,
Mm,
barring some miracle in relation to matchups in the playoffs, which is pretty difficult to foresee. So that's over, but 7 times in 28 games is a lot.
mm.
And yeah, and 21 players and all these different and yeah, it makes it difficult, but it also makes it easy, but it makes it difficult. The advantage Caledonia had in the best thing that happened in this game for Newcastle was that actually Mike Okoro walked to the bench. You know,
Yeah.
after that moment, about an hour before tip off,
Yeah.
that was kind of it. He walked to the bench and
He
looked.
walked out to get his golden ball as well.
Yeah, he looked like get his golden ball, and he's always kind of had drags his foot anyway. He's like a basketball player, he walks like he's kind of injured anyway. So I'm not sure. I think I'm sure that they're trying to get him ready for Tuesday night,
Mm.
in Denmark.
Oh, on the
Um,
subject of that, I put out a tweet about the gap. It's the first time a Newcastle player have won Player of the Month since Fletcher did it. I think it was 46 months ago or 48 months ago,
yeah,
which was the longest gap since Chris Fight to Donny Johnson in 96 to 2000, which was 50
and I
years.
responded by telling you that Chris Fight is in fact the pre-incarnation of Riley Abercrombie.
You did, yeah.
Which I think, yeah, he's a similar, certainly very similar, straight back,
Yeah.
plays 6'9", shoots the ball from the perimeter, and plays 6'9", doesn't ever play less than 6'9". Yeah, well, to be honest, I hated the player of the month. I ignored them. They were
Mm,
awful. The worst thing you could happen was that your guy would get player of the month because then he would feel like he'd won something, and then
mm.
you'd have to deal with the let up. You'd have to deal with the kind of the come down. What you wanted was for him to be snubbed.
Yeah.
You wanted for your guy to be snubbed from player of the month, then he'd play even harder the next game. It's like, well, show these so and so. So yeah, I mean, he was pretty clearly the player of the month. I think looking at the stats
Yeah.
online,
The numbers were
yeah, he's
ridiculously
averaging
higher
30
than
a game
everybody
or
else.
something like that. And to be frank, if you just to go one step further, and I've probably pushed this enough for now, If you're people have different MVP criteria, but if your MVP criteria is the way that your team looks without you as
Yeah.
opposed to looks with you,
This,
then
th-
that was a very
this
good
was a
day for
really
this
good
guy.
game for Mike
This,
Okoro's
oh,
MVP
yeah,
candidacy.
Anyway, so yeah, so basically, what it firstly about this game, and before you go, there's not much to go through other than the fact that Newcastle had a run in the second end of the second quarter, and then played another 20 minutes of tripe. Um, but firstly, congratulations to Caledonia, to Johnny, to winning that game. They actually, and I said it even after the first game, they looked like a proper basketball team. We're not competing for the worst shot of the decade twice a game.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, um, and he's got that depth now, and he played 10. Kane wasn't hurt.
Mm,
Kane warmed up. Kane played 8 minutes at London against Cheshire. Kane was out of the rotation, and that takes a little bit of cojones as well.
mm,
As a young coach, bring your you've got 11 players, and it's your American G League guy who's not getting off the bench, right? So that's sending a message which is saying you got to be on our page, or you're not going to play. Sure Elijah Kane is wanting to play, but there's only so many minutes.
mm.
So that impressed me. And obviously, he was last time he was in Newcastle, he was lucky not to get thrown out for grabbing someone by the ankle as
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
running past. Um, so yeah, and they throughout and they were ready. They had the benefit of rhythm, I think, from Wednesday night.
Mm.
So they made a ton of threes in the first quarter.
They were
Uh,
6 for 8 for three in the first quarter if you don't count the half court heave on the
yeah,
buzzer and
yeah,
led by as
and
many
that
as 10.
and they were bad. Some of them were. I mean, Ramsey made a couple of tough ones, but Whelan got a couple of kind of rhythm threes.
Mm,
Um, Newcastle played slow, and they played without getting any paint. They weren't getting any paint touches. They seemed allergic to passing the ball. Um, they didn't seem to know what they were trying to get into without a Coro to kind of have the ball late shot clock situations. Pulliam ended up dribbling the ball a lot, and they didn't move the ball to any degree. And it was an ugly, ugly 35 minutes of basketball that they played. We had a situation at the end of the first quarter where Kande and Neighbour were both in the game at the same time, which probably indicates obviously there's a little bit of not just the fact that Newcastle are slightly short on numbers, but that they've got 3 games in 5 days coming up.
mm,
That you've got the plan, you've got to try and get something out of everybody. Um, but overall, just in every area, Caledonia beat Newcastle. They got better shots. They got better shots for the guys who wanted better shots. They played with more discipline and they played with more pace,
mm,
and they thoroughly deserved to win. Um, Pulliam has 14 and 7, and the Eagles Facebook page said he was the MVP, but he has to move the ball faster. He has to get off the ball. There's too much standing around in that team. The difficulty that they have, though, is that without a Coro, there is a real kind of a knock-on impact on it's like taking out the bottom piece of the Jenga puzzle, because Okoro is the guy who is able to get into the paint and score at all 3 levels. All the other guys kind of play off him in a
mm,
certain way. So James and Knight are individual scorers, catch and shoot guys, or guys that you give the basketball to. But if you have to have that little bit of an advantage first to get them the basketball, Long requires the ball on the pick and pops to get the passes to him to shoot the ball. Wasn't happening, and it took until 17 minutes and about 18 points before they actually threw the ball to Defoe in the post.
mm.
You know,
So,
you
so
know,
just
and then they had 5 points in 2 minutes.
yeah,
So,
just to get there,
but
just to get there.
offensively,
Ramsey had 9 of 11 unanswered points in the second quarter to lead by 17, which was the biggest lead of the game. And then Darius
mm,
with 5 in a row, and then Pulliam 8 in a row, cut it to 33-36 just before halftime. Gladiators kept in front, then Ramsey with 6 points, Venturi with 3 threes. It was out to 14 again, and they were comfortable from
um, but I got to 50-51, I think, in the third
there.
quarter, I
Mm.
think. And that was at the end of towards the end of the third quarter.
Oh, you're
Ventura,
going to go to the play where they had 2 free throws, missed it, and then Ventura, was it Ventura? Somebody hit at the other end,
yeah,
isn't it?
I think Ventura made a three, Ramsey made a three. Ramsey came off the bench and made a three. And but more than that, I mean, there's a couple of things. I mean, Caledonia shot 13 of 28 from three in this game,
Hmm.
right? That's not acceptable. Defensively, that's not acceptable. Particularly when Ventura has made 5 of them, right? Now, you say, oh, well, I haven't seen Ventura play. Well, we've seen 3 games, right? We know that he's 32-year-old. We know that despite not being, I think it's fair to say, not being a prime athletic specimen, he's played most of his career in the ACB,
Mm,
right? From the warm-up, you can see that he shoots the ball in front of his chin,
mm,
right? If you're somebody who's 32 years old, who's had a career in the ACB, doesn't jump out of the gym and shoots the ball in front of his chin with it basically from a set shot, that means two things. It means one, you're very smart. It means two, you can shoot the hell out of the ball,
mm,
right? And he got 5, 6 open threes against a team that didn't respect the fact that he could shoot the hell out of the ball
mm,
or weren't focused enough on it. And it ends up being a 16-point game.
mm,
Numbers, I know numbers are funny, but ultimately, those are shots that they can and should have taken away if they were more disciplined and more diligent in relation to their defense. You can live with Ramsey going off, albeit they tried to have Ward Hibbert guard Ramsey, and that didn't really work. Ward Hibbert's guarded the ball all season, done a really good job. But Ramsey is the type of guard that actually wants to be speeded up.
mm,
He doesn't, he wants to be pressured because then you're making decisions for him and he's going to make plays. Whereas if you have to, I think with Rams, you have to play a little bit more off him, a little bit softer and make him make the decisions as opposed to, pressuring on the halfway line because you're not going to impact him. So Rotiver only played 15 minutes in this game and struggled when Ramsey was on him. I think he was a minus 15. But more than anything, there was no leader on the court for Newcastle outside of Darius when Darius was in the game, who's trying but doesn't touch the ball enough. They were all looking at each other. James tried to be, but he got a little bit ingrained with stuff with the refs and a couple of times, head down stuff because they were taking away his jump shot. And they need they need to be 100 times better than they were on Friday night. Against that, as I say, Caledonia held them to 67. So Caledonia are solid. They have some solid defensive players. But the frustration that I had in the third, Newcastle done a great job this year of attacking weak links because they're individual scorers, so they attack weak links, right? In the first half, when they made their run, Pulliam was attacking Ventura. They were attacking Ventura because he's not the most mobile. In the second half, they decided the person that it would be best to go out was Onwas. Now, Onwas hasn't played much, but Onwas is, if you're going to play, it's like going at Thompson, if you're going to pick a guy on the Caledonia team to go out one-on-one and or in the post or get a switch and put him go on one-on-one, then it's not Onwas. Alan Aikens is matched up with Theo Hughes for a second. Steps outside, he knocks down a three. Fine. Don't go and get yourself a miss. Don't go and have a screen set for you, so you can go and try and make a play against Prince Onwas.
mm,
It was befuddled thinking. It was brain dead thinking, and there was just a lack. There was just an absolute lack of leadership out there, and it's unfair on Mike Okoro to expect him to provide all of that. So the rest of them have to step up a little bit. That said, you know you can't, their schedule has to play in their mind, particularly as they've been unfortunate enough to lose certainly Delpesh on the weekend of the transfer deadline,
mm,
and also Okoro, and that schedule of coming in that game in Tuesday in Denmark, which I know they're focused on because it's a step into the unknown, and they lost there last year,
mm,
and knowing that they're playing Friday and Sunday, psychologically, I think had some form of impact on. So I'm not going to be overly, as judgmental as I have been, not going to be overly down on it. You can have a game like that, but what I want to see, and the London games are right off, because they're going to be ready for Tuesday,
mm,
and I want to see what they've got. Some of the other guys, because it's March now, and ultimately you can't just be carried by the same guy all season. And remembering, of course, that when they beat Caledonia 3 weeks ago, they beat them by 2, and the Cora had to score 40
mm. Yeah,
in
yeah, he
overtime.
did. Yeah, 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 he did.
So
Yeah.
let's not. Look, Caledonia are a solid basketball team now. They've got solid players. They gave away a game, in my view, on Wednesday. I'm not sure with all the players they got, it's going to translate to playing well when they've got the longer trips to make. Um, but they're capable of winning games. I mean, I like Ventura. I like Ventura for there was a moment at the end where there was a turnover, and I think Newcastle, Caledonia stole the ball but stepped on the line in front of the scorers table, and it was right at the end of the shot clock, and the table had reset the shot clock because they thought there was a steal
Mm,
by Caledonia, which there probably was. But as he got the steal, he threw the ball and he stepped on the line. Ventura was straight over to the ref
mm.
to say that's a shot clock violation. He was the only one who saw it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah.
He was straight over. His mind was tuned into actually that's a violation. Don't worry about controlling the ball, that type of thing. You know, kind of playing chess where everybody else is playing checkers.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, so that kind of guy can only help you, particularly when he clearly can shoot the heck out of the ball.
yeah.
Um, Farrow gave them some solid minutes, just eating up some. They got three centres there now, Barnes, Hughes, and Farrow, so he can run them. He can run who he wants. I'm not sure they're going to get that type of game out of Ramsey every week. I don't think other teams will guard him like that. So they're still going to have issues with potentially the decision making in their scoring at the point. Ramsey is a scoring point guard. If you take away scoring away from him, he doesn't have that much size to get in the lane and distribute to people. So that is something they get, but Ventura gives them that as well. But overall, I thought they were solid. They believed in themselves. They were more together than they've been.
Mm,
Sometimes it can do as much as just sitting the guy down who's not part of the group and not letting him play. That can bind everybody else together. So yeah, I thought they were good, but Newcastle had a chance. They got back. They had those two foul shots. They could have gotten the crowd was ready to support them, but they were just somnambulant.
mm. There we go. We've gone back to
That's
now
that's
last
that's,
week.
that's today's
Yeah,
vituperative.
yeah,
Somnambulant. I think it means sleepwalking. Someone will tell me
yeah.
otherwise.
I haven't written the scores down, so let me just get them off the box stats. Pulliam with 14 points and 7 assists. James with 12 points, 4 of 11 shooting. And Knight and Long both had 10 points each. Ramsey had 21 points and 6 assists. He was 3 of 6 from 3 point range. Ventura had 17 points. He was 5 of 7 from 3 point range, and Whelan 6 of 9 shooting for 16 points. And I think you mentioned it, but they were 13 of 28 from 3 point range. That was the fourth biggest away win for the Gladiators slash Rocks in Newcastle. The last time they won on Tyneside by that many was 55-81 on the 13th of January 2006.
And that 2006.
Yes, yeah, 6.
You know how?
Yeah.
And do you know how I know that game?
How?
Because I was married on the 14th of January
Oh, there we
2006,
go.
and that game was my quote mark stag do.
Okay.
I was married at Matford Hall in Northumberland, and they got beat because TJ and Jeremy were both injured. And I remember the score
Yeah.
81-55. And also, they set me up to do the kit dash. This is before I
Okay,
was,
excellent. Did
this
you
is before I
win?
was a coach, right? So they set me up. It was at the arena, the old
Mm,
Telly West Arena,
mm.
and they set me up um, to do the kit dash. But what I didn't know was they'd sewed one of the legs of the shorts up. So I could only get one leg in, and then couldn't work out what was done. And by the time I figured it out, obviously. But what I will say is, even with kind of the shirt on and one leg in my shorts, and I think the shorts were thrown away, I made the 3 point shot.
Nice,
I made it.
nice.
So that game, I remember that game, 13th of January 2006. Jeremy Hyatt, TJ Walker injured. Newcastle were pretty dire.
Mm,
But I was sitting courtside and I made my shot. Sorry.
nice. The other stat I had out of Friday night, not last night, honest,
Yeah. So yeah.
was
So by the way, those of you who don't understand the level of obsessiveness about basketball, the night before my wedding, I took all
yeah,
my presumptive wife's family to watch the Eagles.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think that's pretty good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we've just gone past the 13th anniversary, if we're going to do that. The 13th anniversary of Guildford against of Worcester. And the reason I remember that game is because it was a Sunday. And my wife, heavily pregnant, woke up and said, "I think today's the day." And I went, "Can it be this evening? I've got to go to Guildford." And bless her, she sat there and waited for me.
Yeah,
Fortunately, it was a blowout, so it was over pretty quick.
yeah.
Home teams averaged 65 points on Friday night, which is the lowest home average in a night where there's more than one game this season. Since 2016, it's only the ninth time there's been an average of 65 or fewer scored by the
Mhm.
home teams.
Pretty
So
good.
go get your ice creams, folks, and
Yeah.
enjoy them and your popcorn and whatever else you get in the intermission. And the game that's apparently written off, we're about to talk to now.
Yes, indeed.
Ba 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 ba
Fernandine.
ba 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 ba. Welcome back from the intermission,
Fernandine.
folks.
That's
Yeah,
what it was.
Furlandine. Yes, indeed.
I've still
Uh,
no idea what they did.
I think they sold advertising, didn't they?
Right.
I think
Okay.
they sold the adverts, but I did Google it and I found there was another intermission thing with not as memorable a song, but it was saying, "Now
I
it's
just
time to
believe you
go
just
get
said it.
your ice cream, or maybe some nuts, or what about a hot dog?"
Right.
So
I
classic
can't believe you
70s.
Googled it, but go on.
I did, because obviously it was annoying me what it was,
Yeah.
and there
You
you go.
claim to be a busy man.
Well, yes,
Yeah, right.
I got to fill the time somewhere. So let's move to today's games, starting with the one I haven't seen. London Lions
Yeah.
79, Newcastle Eagles 68. Soko was back. London scored the first 11 points, was 16-2 ahead after 5 minutes, never in single figures after that. Looks like the game you predicted, Dave.
Yeah, it was. To be fair, London came out, shot the lights out early. Really shot the lights out. And Newcastle had basically their two most effective players in the game actually came off the bench,
Mm,
James and Long. And um, Newcastle's individual scorers struggled a little bit against London's sides, which has been a problem for them in all the games that they've played. But when London came out and the ball was popping and they were making shots. I think they made 9 threes in the game, but they must have made 7 of them in the first 12 or 13 minutes.
mm,
And then after that, you kind of fear, well, this could be this could be a 40-point game or whatever. Um, but at halftime, and there's a lot of fouls called early as well, which didn't help. Newcastle's Defoe had 2 fouls in 2 minutes, and um, Neighbour had a couple as well. But just a lot of fouls for foul shots, a bit of a bitty game. And then in the second half, you'd probably say London dropped off, but you'd probably also see Newcastle stuck in.
mm,
And at one point it wasn't even enough to be kind of a fake comeback, but at one point they were down to like 10 or 11
mm,
and they're having Bozic call timeouts and keeping his main guys on the floor. Um, but there was just Newcastle didn't have enough scoring
mm.
ultimately. Um, if your starting five combines to 32 points and doesn't make a 3-point shot,
Yeah, yeah,
kind of going to struggle.
yeah.
Um,
That was kind of the weird thing to me, looking just purely on the stats, because I turned it on early and I saw the 11-0 50 16-2 start, and then I just saw the result and I thought, well, why was it only 11 points? And then I looked at the minutes, which were surprisingly high for the
yeah.
London starters, given they were 16-2 up, and I thought this was just going to
Yeah,
be a
well, they got a bit sloppy, but Newcastle kind of competed pretty well in the third quarter and got it back to that kind of halfway distance at the end of the third, like 12, 13 at one point,
mm,
11. Whereby if you're the coach and you're playing for the league, you're not gonna want the other team to continue that run. Yeah, it was a bit of a feisty game. It was a bit niggly. There was a
mm,
bit in it. Um, but yeah, overall, London were just apart from, as I say, apart from Long, Newcastle really didn't have anybody who was able to score the ball consistently. And in the kind of the way that they bully their way at the rim with the drives, Knight and James, etc. It's kind of tough against London.
mm,
There's a lot of big bodies in there, and they
yeah,
struggle. Um, London starting five is really playing some excellent basketball. Hadzi Begovic is a difference maker in the league
mm,
actually, with his size and his athleticism. Airballed another free throw as well.
mm,
Bless him. And off the bench they were okay, they were okay, but yeah, I think Silver Kande played 12 minutes
mm,
and they were like first quarter, third quarter minutes. The
Yeah,
end of
yeah,
the
yeah.
minutes. So Newcastle were really running quite deep. Knocked down a shot, did okay actually. So Newcastle were running really right to the bottom of the bench,
Mm,
and London are just a little bit too ready at the moment
mm,
for that game to get any closer.
mm.
But it's out of the way, and apparently the
Yeah.
good news is Stansted Airport does a direct flight to Aarhus.
Okay.
So they've got on a
From
flight tonight
Warhus.
from Aarhus, the Aarhus, and whatever. So they managed to get on a flight tonight without having to come back to Newcastle. So
Okay,
kind of
that's good.
in that way, the game kind of
Yeah,
fit,
yeah, yeah. It's
fits
the
the
travel
chronology,
schedule. Yeah, yeah.
fits the travel schedule. So I'll give them half a step. I'll give the league half a step back on that.
Yeah.
But only
I believe the time is also moved to accommodate that. I
I
heard.
would assume that the time was moved to accommodate the cup final. To be blunt,
Yeah,
I can't believe I mean, obviously it's still kind of overlapped a little bit, but
yeah,
I can't believe that. Well, either way, yeah,
yeah.
either way.
So, Rye, 15 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. Brisker, 14 points and 6 assists. Hadzabegovic, 14 points, 9 rebounds. Long, 24 points and 8 rebounds. Knight, 13 and 8. Newcastle shot 36% from the floor, 23% from three. Um,
Yeah. And Briscoe made one shot in the fourth quarter, which would maybe like the toughest shot of the year, kind of a
mm,
Curry style, you know, moonballing three
mm.
from the wing with Alan Aikens right in his face. That's probably the only thing I'd take away from that game. Watching that game, I was like, bloody hell of
So,
a
I
shot.
assume as you were watching that, you didn't really see the women's game before the
Oh
women's
no, I
cup
watched
final?
no. To be honest, the London Newcastle game was so. I watched the women's game, but at half time I kind of watched it a little bit on fast forward. I started late doing the
Yeah,
washing up, that stuff.
yeah.
Then at half time I popped out to the shops to get some stuff for dinner. So I got back. I got back at 10 past 2 and I totally forgot Newcastle game was even on, which gives you the idea as to as I saw it on Facebook, oh, starting five. Oh, bloody hell. It gives you an idea as to my mindset in relation to that game. So watch the end of the women. I watched the end of the women's game on the old 10-second
Mm,
fast forward, and then shifted over to the Newcastle game, and then shifted over to the Surrey game.
mm.
So yeah, the women's game was all right. But you got to finish. Sheffield, you got to finish. You couldn't
Yeah,
finish at the
yeah,
rim.
yeah, yeah. For those who didn't see it, Oaklands beat Sheffield Hatters 65-51 for their first ever title. They scored the last 10 points of the first quarter, and their defense was relentless enough that they never quite looked like giving it up. And
Wow.
even though Sheffield got a load of offensive rebounds, they didn't get any second chance points.
Yeah, well, that was basically the game. I mean,
Mm,
Sheffield didn't really have much separation
mm,
at the guard spots. Georgia Gale's running the guard, and she's
mm,
kind of a big guard, and so they didn't get much easy going to the rim with quickness. But what they are is obviously a physical team and a big team, and they managed to offensive rebound the ball really well, but they couldn't finish. You
yeah.
know,
They
I
shot
mean,
30.
I thought
They got to 30% at the end, but they were in the 20s from field goal for most of the game.
I thought mind that I thought given Vanessa is the second coming of Vince, isn't she? I mean, I thought she was going to be asking, praying to the Lord, Joseph with Joseph and the rest of his Technicolor Dreamcoat. Yeah, I mean, a bit of style on
Yeah,
a bit of swag on
yeah,
show for
yeah,
these finals.
yeah.
Um, and my brother played Joseph in that, so I know all the songs, which
Nice. Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
reminded me. Um, so yeah, it was just, Oakland's second final, Sheffield's first final. Maybe that gives him a little bit of a
yeah,
bonus.
yeah, yeah,
And let's just remember how, this time last year we were looking forward to the All-Star game.
yeah, 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 yeah. True.
Yeah,
So
well,
let's.
I wasn't looking forward to the
Yeah,
All-Star game.
yeah.
And I think, yet again, I'm sorry to be somewhat egotistical, proved 1,000% right. It was
Mm,
an absolute combination
yeah,
compared to what we've had this year. Anyway,
yeah, yeah.
moving on.
Let's go to Sheffield Sharks 105, Surrey 89ers 97 in the cup final. So Sheffield's first silverware since 2016. Gooden and Ray hitting early. Surrey got up a little bit. Nixon made a couple of shots. Grove scored 7 points. This really set the stall out for what was to come. It was just players scoring.
Yeah, it was up and down. You would probably say maybe it's a little bit tough on Nixon. Um, but the four starting guards are probably more known for their offense than their defense.
Mm.
Gooden, Ray, McGill, and Nixon. That's not to say they don't play defense, but Gooden and Ray are vertically challenged defensively, and Nixon, or certainly McGill and Nixon, are opportunistic defenders as opposed to kind of guys who are going to pick you up 94 feet. That makes any sense?
Yeah.
And the game, you know, kind of developed on that basis. It was a bunch of offensive players, who all of whom had thought this is my moment.
Mm.
And with Sheffield, it was, McGill took a back seat to start with, and with Surrey, Gooden was shooting the ball a lot to start with. Nixon came out, yeah, you pointed out he was over three, but you got to get them up early to get in the
Yeah.
game,
Yeah.
you know. And the danger for that, the danger with that for Surrey, I thought the whole, even while I was watching it play out, was that Sheffield are a little bit deeper and have a little bit more size and talent.
Mm.
And if you're going to get into a scoring race with them, I didn't really think that Surrey would be able to sustain it. That said, Surrey have sustained it a few times this year when I haven't thought they were going to sustain it.
Yeah. 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 And
But
let's face it, they got to 97.
they got to 97, yeah. But at some point, you talked about it on air. We talked about it last week. At some point, it's a three-headed monster.
Mm.
It's McGill, Nixon, and Clay. And at some point, to beat Sheffield, I'm pretty sure you got to stop one of them,
Mm.
right? And in reality, it's most likely not going to be Clay because they space the floor so well for Clay, and he's able to go one on one, and
Mm.
he's individually unusual and gifted. So it really has to kind of be Nixon or McGill. I think that you have to basically set your stall out to stopping, and um, I thought they gave him. I thought particularly in relation to the shots that Gooden made and the shots that Ray made. I'm not sure Sheffield could have defended better,
Mm.
right? The shots that Nixon made where where they're in drop coverage
Yeah.
and he's coming off a screen and pulling up.
Mm.
Yeah, the 18 footers that he made early, okay, you kind of live with them a little bit, but you'd still prefer to be a little bit further up there. So he's having to take two steps and get to the rim because he doesn't finish at the rim much, Prentice Nixon. He's got the floater game, he's got the pull-up game, he's got the three-point game, but he doesn't actually get all the way at the rim very often. And that's kind of almost what you're wanting him to do.
Mm.
Um, and I don't think they did a good enough job of that. Um, but it was just up and down, and to be fair, they were all ready to play. I didn't look. There wasn't one guy on the court I thought, oh, he's not ready to play.
Mm.
Whereas obviously when the Bristol final, Bristol, there's a couple of Bristol guys. You thought, well, their heads started spinning.
Mm.
Both teams were ready to play,
Yeah.
um, which as you say, made for a good game. But the metrics in the game favoured Sheffield, and there's a number of metrics in the game, and ultimately, Clay playing 35 minutes and Adelican playing 21 minutes
Yeah. Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
massive, massive difference in the
Yeah.
game, even though it's only a 7 point game at the end. It's a massive difference in the game because um, I don't think I felt for Hunt because that is a tough matchup for Hunt.
Yeah. Yeah.
For him because Sheffield are spacing the floor. You've got to be up on Nixon. You got to be kind of around McGill. They can both shoot the pull up, but they can both drop the ball inside to the big guy, and you're having to guard on the screen, and you got no help from the corners because they got shooters on either corner, and if they can't get anything out of a screen, they just throw the ball to Clay at the top with a run and start.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he is the only big guy in the league who has the combination of strength and quickness and dexterity.
Mm.
Has Begovic a little bit maybe, but he's more straight line. But Clay can go side to side.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That makes him very, very, very tough for Hunt to guard. The delicate he's a little bit smaller, a little bit quicker on his feet, probably a little bit longer on whatever. And the other thing is when Clay sees Hunt on him,
Mm.
Clay's thinking, "Oh, it's my time now,"
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, you
Yeah.
know. So you're almost putting him into third gear. So Adela only playing 21 minutes was really tough, and it's kind of his own fault because he picked up a dumb foul 2 minutes in the third quarter.
Mm.
on an offensive rebound.
Was it on an offensive rebound or was it in transition?
Yeah,
Oh
it
no, it was
was a
on
push and
offensive
it was
rebound. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, pushing the back on offensive rebound, which he wasn't going to get anyway,
yeah.
you know. And and he stayed in the game for minutes, and then Lloyd took him out, and then Sheffield basically had the three guys
Yeah.
cooking, and they went on a run.
So it was 49-51 at halftime. He had two fouls, as you say, picked up the third
Yeah.
just into the third quarter. And Sheffield also upped their defensive intensity. I know they still gave up 97, but you could feel the difference sat courtside. And Nixon scored 11 in a 17-4 run, and they were 66-57 up 4 minutes in.
Yeah, well, the Sheffield have a little bit more physicality about them than Surrey. So you have the two small guards, their wings are Josh Steele and Nadas, who again don't have the physicality of um, Ritino and Anderson and even Reese when Reese came in. And so they were able to pick it up a little bit, I think, Sheffield.
Mm,
Whereas, the difference in kind of physicality and size hurt Surrey defensively. And also, as I say, um, having a Delican out of the game in that run. Um, what you're basically saying is the only way we're gonna the way Surrey were playing is the only way they were gonna win that basketball game was just keep scoring with them.
mm,
And to have a Delican out at that point, and the reason I'm making a fuss about this is Delican was +9 in 21 minutes.
yeah.
You know, that's in no. That means they were -16 when he wasn't in the game, or whatever it was. Was it a 7 point game at the end, something like that?
It was an 8 point game because he hit three.
Did Steele's three count?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So that the fact it was 11 point game. So basically, in the meaningful minutes, they were -20 without a Delican in, and they were +9 with him in, and that's big enough, even in the kind of the vestiges of the plus minus variance.
Mm,
That's big enough to be substantially impactful.
mm,
Particularly when he's basically sharing minutes with the other guys.
mm,
So I thought they let it go a little bit too far. I understood kind of taking him out, but I thought as soon as Sheffield went on the run, you had to come back in, and I thought they left it too long to get him back in at that point. It's 11, 12 point game, and not only are you playing from behind, um, the other team is confident.
mm.
And you want to maintain that doubt in the other team's head. And, because it's a final, so it's like who's going to crack, who's going to make the plays down the end,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they never quite got close enough down the end to kind of put that
Well, they
pressure
had
on
at the
them.
end of the third quarter, Teo hit a three, it capped a 7-0 run. They got it to four, and you thought, oh, here's a chance. But then Sheffield scored the next 11 points, finished off that quarter, starting into the next, and they were back out to 15 again.
Yeah, and it was the O though. If they get
Yeah.
when they got two or three stops, Surrey are a really good offensive team. They overachieve offensively for the level of budget they have and for the level of um even for the level of talent they have, level of professional experienced talent. I mean, James is scoring the ball just incredibly well at the moment. Teo stepped up and scored the ball well in this game, and that wasn't a given, but he stepped up and played on the biggest stage and played well. And obviously the two little guards can just kind of go off at any point.
Mm,
Um, but they got to get stops somehow.
yeah.
And to get stops against Sheffield, you've got to deal with the three-headed monster, and then you've got to make sure you rebound and you block out Anderson and Routinho
Mm,
and anybody else who's on the court or anybody else who's on the court. I thought Reese made an impact defensively. They used him on ball a bit. Um, so for all bitter Surrey fans. He will forever be known as import number 10. But made a difference. He played the second half. Glasgow didn't come in the game in the second half. Um, and you just kind of got to the impression that if Sheffield weren't going to score, it's because they were going to make a bad play, not because Surrey were able to be that disruptive with them.
mm. And to be fair to Surrey, they had another 11-3 run and cut it to five, and
Yeah,
it actually went right until Clay made a couple of plays at either end in the final minute that they actually finally put it away. They
absolutely. I
they,
mean,
they
there was
stick
still
to it
they
if
didn't.
missed.
Yeah, I agree. They didn't give it up at all. Teo made a three. I think they got to ago. And then Clay made the crossover, crossover move that no other centre in the league can make, and down one on Delican, who on the stats has only ended up with 3 fouls, but I was pretty sure that was a Delican's foul. So I think he must have had 4. And once he made that shot, then there's only so many shots Jalen Ray can make on the step back threes, pulling one
Yeah.
out of his backside, and that's where it got to. And at that point, Lloyd had taken the view that he couldn't have the two little guards in the game at the same time.
Mm.
I think probably defensively, so it was Ray or Gooden. Gooden didn't play much of the fourth quarter.
No.
And they went a little bit bigger with Nadas in the game and Steele in the game at the 2 and the 3, because Lawrence didn't play much in this game either. Lawrence was basically a non factor in this game, which kind of hurt Surrey as well. Um, but I just think they just ultimately Sheffield they're rolling. They got a ton of offensive talent.
Mm.
They were Nixon in particular was kind of the driving force, even mentally before the game, at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of the third quarter. And I'm not sure Surrey quickly stepped up enough to that understanding quickly enough. Um, and they've got depth as well,
Mm.
So you throw all that together, then they're a pretty solid team. And they say they won 10 in a row, so they have to be a pretty solid team.
That
And
equals
Surrey
it,
overachieved. Yeah.
it equals Atiba's best ever run. That he won 10 in a row twice before.
And sorry, they overachieved getting there. I wouldn't say they underachieved. I wouldn't even say they underachieved in the final. They gave it their best shot. But as I say, I think, you know, I don't see any stat sheet with Surrey on the winning side if Clay plays 35 minutes and Delican plays
Yeah,
21.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think they lost some of those. I think there's a danger that you stretch your resources too thin, particularly matchup wise. And Jordan Hunt was minus 15. Jordan Hunt didn't play badly, but Jordan Hunt was on an island
Mm.
um, with very limited help defensively in that third quarter run. And it was that third quarter run that put the game
Yeah,
away
yeah,
ultimately.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think Ant was talking about it. Drew talked about it at the end. I think if they have it back, they'd probably. But that said, even then, the coach knows his players
Yeah, those
better
that's
than the
watching.
commentators and the fans.
Yeah.
So if he thinks, he thinks Dame is too foul prone, I'm going to need him down the end.
Mm.
He's seen him all season, so he's made that judgment.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it was close, but it wasn't close. If you know what I mean.
Mm. McGill, 24 points, 5 rebounds. Nixon, 24 points, 5
Any
assists.
fun stuff?
Clay, no, not that I've pulled out yet. Clay, 23 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks was the
No.
MVP. James, 26 points and 8 rebounds. Ray,
Oh,
24
Clay had to
points.
be.
Yeah, yeah. 24 points and 6 assists. Gooden,
Sorry,
16.
James had to be the MVP. Clay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Teo also 5 of 6 for 12 points as well. Played really well. And we should mention Anderson as well because we always never mention him because
Yeah.
of the stats
No, the
don't
reason.
show, but he played really well.
Oh yeah, well, he did what he does. He knocked down a couple of shots, and one in the first quarter, one in the fourth quarter, just when the team needed him to as well. But the reason Clay had to be this because Clay was the point of difference in the game.
Mm,
He was the one who separated. I think separated Sheffield from Surrey more specifically.
mm,
And he made 7 of 8 foul shots.
mm,
So you look at it, you think 7 of 8 foul shots. Then you look at the fact that McGill and Nixon made 13 out of 13 foul shots between them. So they got 13 free points basically. Um, and Clay 7 of 8, so that's 20 out of 21 foul shots. They're 3 big guys on top, out of those 70 odd points that they combined for.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just too many. You know, you need to have some. And there was a bit in the first quarter, even in the first quarter as well, when they went small and Groves was at the 5, and then Hunt's having to guard Groves, which is really hard on him as well. And Groves was able to knock down a couple of three and get to the rim as well. And it's just, the game was just so spaced out. It was hard for traditional big guys in there.
Yeah. Let's quickly run through the table before we call it an evening. London, the first team to qualify for the playoffs. They also have a four-game advantage over Leicester and Sheffield. They are 18 and 4. Leicester and Sheffield are 14 and 4. Newcastle next 10 and 10. And then Cheshire 9 and 11, Surrey 6 and 12, Manchester 6 and 13, Bristol 5 and 11, and Caledonia now 3 and 16. And that also means that everybody's won away now and everybody's won at home now because of the Caledonia win earlier. Um, that's it, really. I think that's it, unless you've got anything to add.
Well, I think we remember there's one little thing we didn't talk about. Sam broke the news this morning about
Oh, the
the
London
London mayor,
venue. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
the London venue, which is we know would be an unbelievable step forward. A pure basketball venue in London, funded by Lithuanians, who you kind of figure probably know what they're doing,
Mm,
because they've done something similar where they've done it. Um, it's with the support of the mayor. You
mm,
know, it's kind of that's kind of a game changer. It's a game changer for everything. It's a game changer for London basketball if they get their own venue. It's a game changer for potentially, European or EuroLeague competition, get their own venue. It's a game changer in the near future in relation to what's going on with the federation and how things are moving forwards,
mm.
because that will be on the basis of the fact that the London Lions will be playing in the league somewhere next
Yeah, yeah,
next
yeah.
year. So it really it's incredibly encouraging news, because if you get to London, you get to Bristol, you get to Sheffield, you get to Scotland, Glasgow, you get to Leicester, you get to Newcastle. That's six.
Mm.
That's six. Cheshire's pretty new, albeit not theirs. It's the venue. Nottingham looked good today, from what I could
Yeah, it's nice.
see. Obviously, I've never been there. Um, so it'll be interesting to see how interested they are in having a team. I don't know. It's very, very positive. That's very, very positive news as well. In relation to basketball, Bozic to today, um, they were pretty ruthless today, London. He wasn't, you look at the minutes on the court, they're winning these games with a purpose in mind, and they're
Mm,
not taking chances. He's not taking chances about it.
mm,
So that was a game from the beginning, from the first 5 minutes, I couldn't figure out in my mind or fathom a way that Newcastle could win it.
mm,
I couldn't on Friday, on the first bit we did yesterday.
mm.
Um, but he was taking, and in the past, if this was October, he may have had some more of his young guys in the game.
Yeah,
But in this game, no, absolutely not. And with them, I know we count losses instead of wins, but with the parity there is in the league this year, 4 wins ahead is a hell of a
yeah,
thing.
yeah, it is. It's a big push, isn't it?
So I mean, they're going. I mean, in reality, if they split with Sheffield, that'll give them the head-to-head 3-1.
Mm,
And Newcastle only have to play Sheffield 3 times, not 4 times, like I said last week. Sorry, but if London split with Sheffield, that takes them to 3-1, and the head-to-head. Sheffield are going to have a hell of a job, because whilst they've won 10 in a row, I'm not sure if they're a team that can win 20 in a row.
yeah, 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 yeah,
To get to that point, you've got to be absolutely dominant,
yeah,
and they've very good. But some of the games they've won by a couple, or they've been down 15 at half time and they've come back, and a win. But eventually, that can hit up on you. It's not a team that's kind of winning routinely by 20, 25 every week like London were. So I think London are right in pole position. That's
mm,
a statement of the bleeding obvious, but there you
yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we'll call it a
Mm.
night for this week. Congratulations to Sheffield and to Oaklands for their trophy success. I'm sure they'll
And
be
how many finals? How
part.
many finals is that?
How many finals?
How many finals have you done? How many finals have
Me?
you
I don't
commentated on
know.
them?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
you. All
Yeah,
the stats in the world. What
yeah,
about
no,
yourself?
no, I never actually counted it. Yeah, I'd be,
There you
I
go.
probably, I probably got it. It's probably in my spreadsheet. I do note off the games that I've done, but
I'm
I've
sure
never
we do.
counted the finals. So a lot
Did you
is
get
the
a
answer
medal?
to that. No,
That's
I
great.
get nothing. Nothing. Bottle of water. That's
No.
about it. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we will be back to do
Disappointing.
it all over again next week. But for now, on your way out, buy another ice cream and some more peanuts, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.